Hello, ladies and gents. Hope you're well. Hope you had a fantastic weekend, day, evening, night, wherever it is for you. And this week I was given the wonderful opportunity to be able to meet and also talk to Alex. Now, Alex, I kind of found from TikTok originally on a series that he did where he kind of did some of the traits or some of the things that people do on LinkedIn versus what people do on TikTok. And I thought it was a really unique perspective, so I thought I would invite him on to talk about content creation, marketing, but also his thoughts on the dreaded R word and the fact that economic challenging times are coming. And I want to try and flip the podcast's conversation onto helping that thrive and helping you still be able to provide value to your clients, grow your business, and be able to move forward. So I'm now going to hand over to Alex to explain a little bit more about what he does, and I'll see you in just a moment.
Yeah, so Alex Sheridan, founder and CEO of Impacts Marketing. We help companies and people take their video content and turn it into a 24/7 sales rep for their business.
Fantastic. Thanks, Alex, for the time. I really appreciate it. And, I think it's interesting to start with the journey that of kind of how I found your content, and then I reached out and obviously organized this, right? And I think, and the reason why I'm going to start there is because I think it's really important for people to understand sometimes about how meaningful connections can actually be made, especially in business, right? And I think, I stumbled upon your content originally from your TikTok versus LinkedIn series, which is kind of a skit thing, which is really funny and I really like. So, how did you, for the audience sake, how did you get to the point where you were creating content and starting to create content that is quite unique, right? Because we've seen the rise of TikTok, we've seen the rise of short form, but kind of what kind of made you jump into the skit space, or really stands you apart in your content, and maybe a little bit on that process as well, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I was in B2B sales for 10 years. So I was knocking on doors, I was hitting the phones, I was sending emails, I was generating business for my company. And I got to a point where I was pretty successful. I had found some success in the company that I was at, the corporate company, for the last 6 years. And I was starting to train other reps and whatnot. And I had this itch of I want to start my own thing. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to try this whole business thing. I just have a lot of ideas, a lot of creativity flowing. I don't feel like I can maximize my potential where I'm at. And so in 2019, I actually started on LinkedIn and Instagram first before I even got on TikTok. And I decided I was going to put out content in late 2019, around October, September-ish. I had 0 followers. I started a whole new page on TikTok. So I started from 0. I had a work page or a LinkedIn page I used for my work, and that had maybe 3,000 followers from 5 years of being active, right? And then I was like, I'm going to start a new LinkedIn page because I want to talk about different things that are unrelated to my current job, my full-time job. And so I started a brand new LinkedIn page from 0. And what I did is I started putting out content on both LinkedIn and Instagram. And I was like, my business is going to be, the business idea I had in the beginning was I know sales, I know how to generate business for other companies. So why don't I go to other small to medium-sized companies, and I'll be a sales consultant or a trainer or coach, and I'll help other companies increase their revenue, grow their territories, work with their reps or leadership. That was my idea. That was the first idea I had. I started putting out content around sales and leadership and that kind of stuff, or on LinkedIn and Instagram, and I started creating videos. Once I started putting myself out on video, and I slowly but surely started kind of getting more creative with it and letting my personality shine. At first, I was a little more reserved, and then I kind of just let it all go. Well, what I noticed was that my prospects, the people that I wanted to do business with, started reaching out to me. And so I was mind blown by this, because I was so used to cold calling and being the one that was the hunter. Now, all of a sudden, I became the hunted. And they would DM me and message me and say, hey, I saw your video on so-and-so, or on X, Y, and Z, on sales, on leadership, on this and that, and content on LinkedIn, on social selling, and found it really interesting. I love what you said about X, Y, Z. Can we book a call? I need to start doing something like that, and I don't really know where to start. And that's where a lot of the conversation started. So as that was happening, I won a couple clients that way, or I got a couple inquiries that way. I started to think, I've got to change I don't want to do sales, teach people how to do purely sales. I want to teach people how to do the video and how to do social selling and how to modern day sales, right? And I want to teach people the content thing. I was like, I got some work to do myself. I got to figure more about this out. But I was like, I love it. I'm passionate about it. I'm excited about it. I think I'm pretty good at it, and I know I can help people. So that's what in early 2020, when I was still working my full-time job, I made the pivot to say, I'm doing this. I'm all in. I'm 100% in this content marketing, social selling thing. And video, and I knew it was going to be big in the future. This is before COVID, right? A few months before COVID. Little did I know it was going to expedite overnight. I just had a feeling that the world was going to go that direction anyways. And so that began the journey. And then in February 2020, I won my first customer for that new business model. And then by July 2020, I was putting in my 2 weeks notice in my company, my corporate job that I was at for 6 years, put in my 2 weeks notice, and then started living started becoming a full-time entrepreneur and living the dream life.
I think it's a really important story, right? Because so many people either use the pandemic as like okay, this is a great time for me to reinvent the business or do something different, etc. Of course, there was also a percentage of the business world that got hit really hard, and etc. Right? I've heard terminology of saying we were all in the same storm, but we weren't in the same boat, right? And I think it's a really important perspective. But the people who are potentially looking at content now and seeing the power of content, maybe, I mean, how did you sort of get over the hurdle? Because we hear it a lot about, oh, I'm not confident, or I don't feel like I'm gonna sound really good or come across really well, etc. I mean, like, did you have that stage at the beginning, and if so, how did you kind of get through that level of like awkwardness or like that concept of being on camera, right?
I never, to be totally honest, I never really had the fear of getting on camera. But I will say this though, I did start making videos back like probably what it would have been 3 years before I really got serious about it in 2019. And I made like, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 YouTube videos. And I didn't know how to market myself or any of that type of stuff. I really didn't even know how to create content. I would just show up in my corporate office on a Saturday and I'd film some videos, and I would take those videos, put them on YouTube, and then I would send them to prospects or people that I was tracking down and try to win business from, or current clients trying to win more business. And I would send them valuable stuff that I was talking about how to, do their job better, or how to do the X, Y, and Z, or it was like value educational based content. And I did it for a little while, and I got razzed a little bit in the office. Why are you making videos? No, Alex is making YouTube videos now. And then, I didn't see any results really from it because I didn't give it long enough time, and I really didn't have a strategy. So I stopped doing it. And it wasn't until probably 3 or 4 years later that I actually dived in and got serious about it again. But for me, no, I've never had an issue getting on camera and putting myself out there. Here's what I would say though. There's other things that I've had, I have fears and things that I struggle to get outside my comfort zone with, and just like anyone, right? But being on camera wasn't one of them. But I will say this, for people out there, if you're listening to this right now and you're saying to yourself, I fear that, what if I make a video, I don't look perfect? Or what if I make a video and it doesn't, do well, it doesn't perform well? What if someone makes fun of me? What if it's not perceived the right way? What if I'm worrying about perfection versus progress, even though there's no such thing as perfection? You have to look internally. That's something that's going on inside of you, where you're basically taking the validation from other people, from external sources, and you're using that to determine your next step in your business or your life. And that's a very dangerous spot. What I would say, flip the script, and the alternative to that, to help you get on video and help you put yourself out there, get outside of your comfort zone, would start to be, and this is something I've been thinking about a lot over the past year, start to think about your values as a human being and as a business person, or as a mother or father, or whatever it is. What are your core values? And then use those to bring out the greatness inside of you. Not to get too overly, I'm not trying to get overly motivational here, but I really think that people look for external validation as opposed to looking at their validation that comes from within. For example, a person that seeks external validation right now would say, I don't know if I want to put out that piece of content because what if it doesn't do well, and what if I fail? What if people make fun of me? What if people don't perceive me the right way? What if I'm perceived as not as good of a person anymore? That's what a person seeking external validation would say. What a person that knows and is very confident with their internal values would say is, they'd say, I've got an opportunity to put myself on video. Does it line up with my values? Is the message good? My values are that I want to make a positive impact on people. My values are that I work hard. My values are that I care and I'm kind, and that I am bold, that I go for the things that I want, that I'm going to have courage. Those are my values. And so if I look back on that, I can say, all right, I want to put myself on video. It's a little bit uncomfortable. I want to, create the content or step up in the meeting or do my first keynote, whatever it is. I recognize that there's some uncomfortability. That's perfectly normal. I recognize there's a little bit of maybe anxiety or fear around it. That's perfectly normal. But my values dictate where I make the decision and where I go from here. And I think when your values dictate your behaviors, and you're not relying on somebody else to make you feel good or validate you because you've got that internal values that you drive off of, that's everything. That's the difference between people that actually go for it and people that don't.
And I think it's a really important thing. And I think so many times we whether that's because of the external validation you just spoke about, or because we don't have the self-confidence, self-belief, etc. in ourselves to be able to, what if I make a mistake, right? What if I get something
But
wrong?
of course we don't have confidence in it. We've never done it before, right? So the idea that you need to be confident day one is kind of a misalignment. The idea that the thing that people should be thinking about is, again, the values. What are my values? Do I value being courageous? Do I value putting myself out there? Do I value helping other people with my content? Right. So I think people tend to think that they need to be great at something when they first start. It's not going to happen. You're not going to be the most confident person at what you're doing when you first started. But what you can be confident is that you're a person that does that kind of stuff. You're a person that goes for it because that's who you are as a person, and that's based around your values.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to base, as I say, a lot of the decisions you make on one's values and what you believe is actually going to happen. Actually, probably won't happen, right? Like a lot of the time, we're concerned of, oh, what if the person doesn't like
right.
me, or etc. Right, by doing it. And I think in reality, sometimes it doesn't even happen.
That's a great point, man. That it's all in your head anyways. So everything that you're thinking that could happen, the worst case scenario, it's all in your head anyways.
Yeah. I mean, the analogy I always use for that is like, oh, what if someone thinks I'm weak at the gym, right?
Right.
In most cases, when you start out of the gym, 95% of people don't actually care what you're doing in the gym unless you're in their way, right? And that's simply because they're just focusing on what they're trying to do and what they're trying to achieve, right? They're not worried about, oh, what's this other person doing in the gym. But something that I really wanted to touch base with you on was, I know we're seeing it in America, we're seeing it in the UK at the moment, where we're either just before a recession or about to go into recession or currently in a recession. Whichever article or whichever place you look will give you one of the above, right? What do you think, and what do you think is likely to happen in the next couple of months or couple of years or maybe year, right? For content creators, for people who have businesses, what should they be looking to do to quote unquote survive this recession, right? Because I think there's so many people who are really worried and really concerned. They're just watching prices go up. They're watching a lot of stress. They're seeing a load of people on the news talking about, oh my God, this could be the worst thing in all of time, and we're, etc. But surely there must be like a solution, right? There must be things that we can proactively do to give us a higher chance of being.
Yeah, I mean, if we go into a recession, or maybe we are in one now, what that typically does is it forces companies to do the things that they should have done before the recession. So if companies were stalling on creating content or creating that podcast or getting on video or training their team or whatever it is, the leadership was, oh my gosh, we're too busy. The salespeople or the recruiters, everyone in the company, oh my gosh, we can't spend 1 second on building a brand, even though it's the most important thing to do in your business. All of that all of a sudden stops because now you've got time because the business slowed down. Your phone's not ringing off the hook. So it actually brings everyone back down and they start to evaluate, well, how should we tackle this? What should be our priorities? What should be our strategy? And then all of a sudden now I start saying we need to create content. We need to build a brand because guess what else happens in a recession? Everyone else kind of comes down and then all of a sudden it's harder to get business. And so who do the people go to that do spend the money in that given time? They go to people that they know, they recognize, they like, the people that have built trust and credibility through brand, through content. So everything gets squeezed during a recession, potentially, depending on the industry. When it gets squeezed, what you're left with is the people that have spent time creating content, building a brand, getting people to like, know, and trust them. And those are the people that win the majority of the business. It's the reason that companies like mine and a lot of others thrived during COVID. And there were certain agencies and companies that did not do very well at all. And I know some were really impacted by just the nature of what COVID is, like restaurants and things like that. But even those, a lot of the restaurants that still made it and thrived past that were the ones that evolved, were the ones that focused on their customers, were the ones that integrated apps in, takeout food and delivery. And they started getting creative with their content and how they reached their customers. These are all things that they should have done prior to the recession, prior to COVID. They should have been thinking about how do we create a better experience for our customer? How do we get in front of our customers more often? How do we create better content, a better experience for them? How do we get them better results? Now they had to focus on that because something halted everything. And so you kind of really got to look your business honestly square in the face and say, are we doing the best we can for our customers, for our team? And so I think actually sometimes a recession can actually force people into things they should have been doing before that. But I think that, are we going to go into a recession? Who knows? Are we in one now? Maybe technically, I don't know. All I know is I'm going to control what I can control. right? And the thing I can control is I can put out content that helps people, that builds a brand, that generates business. If things slow down, the notion or the idea or the practice of building a brand in demand, that you can't stop that. Just because people aren't spending money this month because something crazy happened in the economy, your brand still elevates. Because guess what? If people aren't spending money in that moment in time, they will be very soon, once everything kind of the calm stops from the storm. But even if they're not in that microsecond or micro moment, they're still consuming content. They're still on LinkedIn going like this, on TikTok going like this, on YouTube going. So it's always happening. It's a continuous thing that you constantly should build. So recession, no recession, either way, the number one thing you need to be doing right now is thinking about, how do I put out more content that builds our brand as a person, as a company, and that generates more opportunities for customers to get involved with us in a non-salesy way, that we teach them, we educate them, we edutain them, we motivate them, so that when they are going to buy, they naturally come to us and it's not even close.
And I think, having that level of authority, right? And, someone that I spoke to a while ago gave me something that really key takeaway was attention will always lead to, like, money will always lead after attention, right? Because the thing is, if you're in someone's peripheral vision constantly, when, you need whatever it is that one sells, then they're going to be the one that jumps to mind first, right? I mean, I'm curious because obviously we've seen the rise of TikTok, we've seen the rise of short form, we've seen the rise of etc. I mean, how does your content model? Because you've just articulated really well why a business should do content, right? So I'm sure there's some people now asking, okay, Alex, right? So how do we create content, right? How do we create something that's going to actually do whatever it is we need it to do, right? I mean, could you break down your process slightly? Because I love your content because it's unique and there's kind of always a kind of spoof element to quite a lot of it. I mean, that's what jumps out to me specifically when I saw your content, especially, as I say, with the TikTok / LinkedIn kind of versus thing, which is kind of, it's a concept which has been done before, but I haven't been seeing it done in your medium in the respect to talking about different trends or social media platforms, right? I mean, how do you build content ideas? I think that's the key question there, because I think that's what most people are going to either struggle with or need to actually become quite open to if they're going to go down this content creation rabbit hole or journey.
So this is my 5-step process to how I found all the success I have with my content. It starts with, number one, I'm gonna go kind of high level. We can dive into anything afterwards. Number one, it starts with how well do you know your customer or the audience that you want to attract? And most people think they do, but they really don't. Like, I was on a call literally an hour and a half ago, and we were talking through some of my content as examples. And he brought up the fact, he goes, every time I see your videos, I feel like you're literally grabbing me through the screen, holding me like this and talking to me as the individual person that's watching your video. And I'm like, that's exactly what you want to be able to do with your content. And the reason I can do that is because I study and I'm obsessed over what my customers and clients are going through. What are their pain points? What are their challenges? What are they thinking about? What are they really insecure about? What are their fears? What do they think about late at night? What's holding them back from going to the next level in their business? What are they doing right that they need to do more of? Right. So I really know this stuff. And then what I do is I take that pain point or challenge and I add my unique perspective to it, my stories, my perspectives, the things that have worked for me and our clients. And I add that to it. And then I just times that by all the content channels and the pieces of video or the micro clips that go out to the different content channels. So that becomes the distribution play at that point. So the first part is you got to know your customer really well. And when you put out content where people are saying things like that and messaging, say, hey, what you just said in that video today was so spot on. Our company's going through the exact same thing. That's good stuff, right? So you need the qualitative feedback to get that. The second thing you need to do once you figure out the customer is then at that point, you've got to figure out what is the content strategy. And so overarching, you need to figure out where are your customers at. They're probably, if you're B2B, they're probably on LinkedIn, right? They're probably consuming podcasts. They're probably potentially on YouTube, of course, searching for stuff, right? They're probably on TikTok these days in August 2022, because that's just what is happening. So you need to figure out, what are we going to create and where are we going to distribute the content to? And hopefully where are some good organic reach so we can snatch up in the process. Number 3, you need to build out systems and processes. I call it the video content machine. So this is basically, I'm not going to go through the whole thing right now, and we could later if you want to, but it's a process where we basically allows us to create a never-ending stream of video content. We take raw clips that come in, we've got a process, it comes out the other side, edited videos ready to post. I've got 50, 60, 70 videos right now that we could post. I cannot make another video for the next 2 months and post videos every day. And that's the video content machine. The fourth part is figuring out your engagement and community and turning on LinkedIn, turning connections into clients. So you need an engagement strategy. You've got to engage with people. You've got to respond to comments. You've got to sort of build the community. That's a big part of social media. You got to be social. And number 5 is tracking, measuring, and optimizing for success. So when you get leads come in, do you know where they're coming from? Do you know if people are coming from TikTok or LinkedIn or your podcast or your live event? How do you measure success? What does it look like? How do you make sure that you're making progress over time? And so that's the 5-step process.
I mean, that's really powerful. I think what I think is going to be the most valuable for the audience is understanding the machine, right? I mean, I think when you're using the model which we're talking about here, it can be quite quickly, though, something which can be quite overwhelming, number one, but also number two, potentially quite expensive, right? Let's go through the process potentially, and then I think I'll see whether there's troubleshoot. I'm curious to see whether there'll be problems. But what's your process when you say the content machine? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, and when you say expensive, look, you either are going to spend time or money, or both, or potentially both, right? So you got to think about, if you're early on, like if you're a solopreneur, you're just starting off your business, you're trying to figure things out, then spend a lot of time yourself, because you want to figure out what works, right? In the first 6 to 12 months or 6 to 8 months, I edited all my own videos. I spent my own time on it. I wrote all my content. I still do write all my content. I spent the time engaging with people. So I think you need to leverage your time if that's what you got. If you've got more capital or more money, then you can spend a little bit on, people managing things for you or video editing, right? Even though I don't look at that as an expense, I look at that as an investment, of course, right? I'm sure you would too. So the video content machine works like this. Step 1, you've got to create the macro video content. So that could be you doing this podcast. That could be me as a guest on the podcast. For me, we do live weekly events, Brand in Demand, every Tuesday at 2:30 Central Standard Time. We turn that into the audio into the podcast. That creates a lot of macro long form video for us. Second, from there, I go through and timestamp what clips I think would work well for the feeds that we're going to be posting them and for our clients, right? Just cancel out this call. Oh crap. So second would be, I go through all the content, the big macro clip. I timestamp the clips that I think would be most valuable to my audience and would be best for the platforms. I take that macro clip and then the timestamps, and then I send that to my social media manager or team lead. She'll go through, trim them up, send them to our editor, and we supply social media managers and editors as a service for our company. But we would then send to the video editor. The video editor is going to go through, edit the clips, send them back to the social media manager, step 5 for a quality check. If everything's good, it goes on to step 5. If it's not, she'll quality check it, send it back to editing. They'll send it back. Step 5, it gets sent back to us. We either schedule it out to post or post manually, and now it's in the feeds. And so that whole process, you might be like, well, I don't have a team lead. I don't have this. I don't have an editor. Well, then just replace yourself with any parts of that process, right? Because very early on, I was going through and trimming everything and then also editing clips. And then there's plenty of things you can use nowadays, like InShot, Capwing, Descript. Those are tools that you could use to do very simple editing by yourself, right? And so you can post the content yourself. I still post most of my own content. I still write my own content. So there's a ton of things that you can do. Just replace yourself with anybody. But as you scale your business, you can't do everything, right? Like there's no way you're going to be able to do 10 different tasks. You're going to have to hire, outsource, or delegate, or automate, or eliminate if it's not working. And so you got to think about those things as you scale, but that happens over time.
Yeah. And I think it's there's a level of, especially at the beginning, right, where you just have to work really hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Like it's just a level of just grind it out, right? Especially at the start. It's just, you just got to do it. And I think sometimes people, especially when they start out, they make excuses about why they can't do that.
Right.
And and for me, they're the one, like, it's either you've got it or you don't, right? It's either you're going to take this seriously and you see it as a potential way to grow your business and you see value in growing the business, or you don't. Okay, if you don't, then don't take your business seriously. If you do, then get it done.
Exactly.
Find a way, right?
You're always,
whether that.
Yeah. I was just going to say, you're always going to find an excuse. If you want to find an excuse, you're going to find an excuse. If you want to say, I can't do videos because I'm scared, I can't do videos because I don't know how to edit and I can't afford an editor, I can't do edit videos because I don't have time for it. All of those things are excuses. All of that tells me that either two things. One, it's not a priority, meaning you don't believe in it. Like you don't actually believe that it's important in the first place. So that's why you're not setting a priority. Or two, you do believe it's a priority, but you're not committed enough and disciplined enough and invested enough to actually go make it happen. It's one of those two things. That's it. So yeah, but to your point, in the beginning, you gotta make sacrifices and and it's just the way it is. There's no, you don't start off where you see people years down the line after they've went through all this shit. I've been through so much, dude. I have so much challenges and failures and fucking all kinds of things have happened, right? To get to this place. And so it's also the point where you got to kind of love it. Cause that's, if you don't, you'll just quit. It's too freaking hard, dude.
Yeah. The reason why I mention it is because like, I think sometimes we look at like the Gary V's of the world, or, you know, yourself or whoever. Right. And we say, oh my God, it's so good for them because they've got a team, right, or they've got all this or they've got all that, right? And it's, they've got it so easy. But the thing is that when you scale, what you're doing becomes even more challenging, because actually the response you need, it's not even a question of, oh, this is fun. It's just like you need it to work because you've now got more bills to pay, right?
That's definitely
as you scale.
Yeah, I mean, as you scale, yeah, ideally you're making more money, but you've got more responsibilities and more, you know, obviously costs, but you should have more revenue, right? But yeah, to your point, I mean, people look at Gary Vee and they're like, you know, he's got all, you know, 3 or 4, 5, 6 videos a day. And it's like, but he's got a team of several people that just work on his personal brand. Right. And so it's like, it's not a fair comparison. What you'd have to go back and look at is when he first started, which was like, I don't know exactly where he started, but I think one of the first ones at least was that wine show he did. I think it was on YouTube, right? And then some other platform, but he just talked about wine and they set up a camera and it was just him in front of the camera talking about wine for years. Right. And then he got on Twitter and did Twitter. And then years later, he has this big team now. And again, that's just a process of you start here and you go up. So don't look at someone here and go, oh, how do I do that? Well, you're not there. Like, and that's okay. Like, have fun as you go from here to here. I think that's a key component, because once you get here, there's always going to be another place and another ledge and another place you can go. And so it's like, for me, it's not about reaching the mountaintop. It's really about enjoying the climb to get to the top. I mean, I think I really believe that. It's kind of cliche to say like, enjoy the process, enjoy the journey, but I really think that is a big, big piece of it, man. Because even once you get to that place you want to be, if you're like, just pick somewhere you want to be in business. Cool. Now you're here. Dude, you're still going to feel the same. It's not like I mean, yeah, you'll be proud and you'll have more money, you'll have some things, but it's like, it doesn't change like everything. You know what I mean? Like, you still got to look in the mirror. You're still the same person. You've grown, obviously, you've gained knowledge, but it's not that much different in my experience.
Yeah. And I think, as I say, I think sometimes we glorify or highlight or, you know, showcase what Gary's doing, or, you know, insert other guru-esque influencer person in this in relationship to Gary. But I think, as I say, like, for me, it's actually trusting in the process as well as enjoying it, right? Because especially right now, there's a lot of people who are like, it's really quiet, it's going to go 2 ways. I had a conversation earlier today that was like, I don't know what's going to happen with the recession, because either people are going to continue to purchase and continue to look to grow, etc., because they're just, you know, they want to gain the momentum, or everyone's going to like to do what they did in some part of lockdown, which was like, right, we're going to just wait, we're not going to do anything, and we're going to see how this plays out. But the problem with that is sometimes you can be stagnated, and, you know, what you're not going to do, and what we're talking about here, is creating a snowball effect of what you're doing, right? The problem with standing still is you completely cut off any momentum you gained because you're not continuing. So the best thing to do, even in a time where it's like, well, maybe this is not going to be great, or this is going to be a bit rough, is continuing to build on that momentum and continuing to push that snowball if you need to, because eventually the snowball will be able to, you know, just carry itself, right? But I think for people, I don't know whether you do a lot of document more than create, but I think there's pros and cons to both, right? And I think for me, if you're, I guess in some ways, time starved, like every small business owner will say, oh, I'm really time starved, right? But again, they're making an excuse about why they can't create the content. Something that we teach a lot is, okay, if you're in a meeting or you're in a set of meetings, why don't you record your perspective and then turn that into 50 clips, or turn that into 60 clips, or whatever it is. And if you're really truly time starved, then you're probably making money. Okay, then you can outsource to an editor, etc., as we discussed. But I think for me, I mean, what's the difference between the two from your perspective? Because there is a lot of different pros and cons to both, and from our experience, sometimes the like results, e.g. views, like subs, blah blah blah, whatever your metric is, can be very different depending on if it was documented content or created content.
Yeah, and just to be clear for the audience too, I think, you know, when we say documented content, it means taking live events that are happening in real life and chopping those clips or videos up and then putting them on social media, right? Is that your same definition? Yeah. So I think sometimes when people hear document, they think like a vlog or like document, like it's really just capturing live events that are happening throughout your life. It could be client calls, it could be a podcast you run, it could be Zooms, it could be, you setting up your equipment and then adding audio to it later. Like someone asked on a TikTok the last couple of days, can you show me your setup? I'm really curious. I'm like, cool, I'll do a video on it. Right. So the reason I really value the documentation side and the repurpose side of content is because that allows you to scale. It's hard to scale when you're creating every single piece of content from scratch. You certainly can do it. I did it for over a year, but it's tough, right? And you've got to be very consistent, very dialed in. When you actually document and you repurpose your content, you can take a macro form video clip like this. That's 30 minutes, 45 minutes. I'm doing this anyways. So why wouldn't I multiply my efforts instead of this being seen by 50, 100, 1,000 people? Well, now I can chop it up into 5 to 10 clips that'll get seen by 150,000 people. So why would I not do that, right? And the answer for most people is they just don't know how. And it seems like a long process to learn how to do it really well. And it isn't to a certain extent, right? Unless you got someone showing you every step of the way. It is going to take you to get outside of your comfort zone to actually make this happen. Yes, but it's worth it because you can scale yourself in unbelievable ways. I love repurpose and documentation for that reason. The reason I love creating content from scratch is because, one, I think you need to do it to a certain extent on the different platforms. Like if all you do is repurpose everything, you need to show like it's not enough of a certain angle of you that I think you're capable of showing, in my personal opinion, right? So I love doing the creative videos. I love making edutainment videos. I love making people laugh and smile and think differently and shift their perspective in a fun and entertaining way, whether that's me acting or rapping or impersonating, whatever it is. For me, I do it for two reasons. One, it's very effective because I'm creating an original piece of content for my audience for a particular platform. So it's probably going to outperform a lot of the repurposed stuff. That's just how it works, right? I'm creating this specifically for the sole purpose of sharing it as a piece of content. So I can be much more intentional and creative and all types of different things with that content, right? So it works really well for that reason. It grabs more attention. If it's dialed in and the messaging is good, it's going to attract business for you. And the other aspect of that is I enjoy doing it. I love it. I wake up every day and I'm excited to like write a script or make a song about LinkedIn versus TikTok. Like I just really enjoy it. And so I think that's the one overrated thing or underrated thing that most people don't talk about with content is find something that you really love to do. Whether it's the podcast, live events, the video content, the edutainment, whatever it is, find a medium that you really enjoy. And then that will help you stay more consistent because you're not like, oh, I got to go shoot 5 videos. I hate doing videos. Or, oh, I got to write 10 text posts. I hate writing text posts. Find something that you somewhat enjoy. Doesn't mean you're going to enjoy the whole process, but that's my take on it. On the edutainment things, I know you brought up the LinkedIn and meets TikTok and those kind of things. When I make edutainment videos, there's a big difference between edutainment and entertainment. Like I'm not out here doing dances and lip syncing and just doing funny trend stuff. I create videos that actually have a purpose and a meaning behind them. And then what I do is I take that message that I know is going to be important for my customer to hear, that perspective shift or that tip or that strategy or whatever it is. I take that right here and then I just put a creative twist or bow on top of it. And then I shoot that out into the social media feeds. That's how edutainment is done correctly. If you want it to win business, if you want to bring in clients, if you want to really build a brand, it's not just doing whatever is hot or trending that day or something silly. It's about actually having a good core message that brings value to your audience and then just delivering it in a very entertaining way.
Yeah, and I think it's really important. I mean, something that we've started doing is, live events, workshops, etc., right? And I think for me, in reality, like start with documentation content because it's easier, and then you'll get ideas, and then you'll get reality checks of like, oh hey, we could do this idea, or oh, this is a common thing I'm hearing in the client list or people I speak to, etc. Why don't we then create something that's like really unique and I keep using your example of TikTok versus LinkedIn, but it's a good example, right, of customer traits or things which audiences do which are either funny, annoying, or both, right? And I think for me it's about taking inspiration from others but not carbon copying what they're doing, right? Because it could be, and I apologize ahead of time if there's now going to be TikTok versus LinkedIn. But the point, I think, is actually you can't be Alex and you can't be me, right? Because Alex is carving out what he is known for, right? And he's going to do it in Alex's way, in the same way I'm going to do it in my way, in the same way the person listening to this is going to do it in their way. And I think it's about leading and building off what you talked about earlier about external validation, it's actually about being trusting in what you're saying yourself and saying, actually, this is my opinion, right? And I am actually willing to defend this point, even if people say, well, I'm sure I'm going to get some feedback from this, and say, actually, Colton, documenting your content is really lazy, or documenting is, etc., 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 right? I'm sure I'm going to get that. But my response would be, okay, well, it's better than creating nothing, and actually, some of the best performing clips and the best value adding clips have come from the documenting model, because I don't miss anything when I'm teaching or saying anything or talking to a client or in depth in a conversation. I don't miss anything that I've said, so I can either recontextually edit that afterwards and say, hey, I've just had this meeting, I can talk about it and give the context, or just that clip on its own sometimes can be really powerful as well. I mean, have you found there's I guess really golden moments that if you weren't documenting you would have missed?
Oh, absolutely, dude. Every week, every time. I mean, definitely our live sessions, the podcast, things like this, dude. I mean, yeah, there's so many moments in time that are amazing that just for most people, they don't capture it. And so they just leave the conversation and like you could have delivered something. Yeah, you maybe delivered that aha moment for that one person on the Zoom call that day or the live session with 20 people. But imagine that same aha moment, light bulb moment goes off, and you now can show it to 50,000 people, right? Like 100,000, a million people potentially. Like that's what I think about when that's the power of repurposing your content, taking the live events and turning it into content. And again, it's just a skill. You got to develop processes and systems. It's like, it's a lot of work. I don't want to do it, but it's like, but if you get it set up, it really can generate so many opportunities for you and your business. And I also just think, man, it's just, video is such a powerful way to get better at telling your story and your value prop and speaking to clients. And like, there's so many personal growth thing that comes from video. I know for a fact, dude, and you'd probably say the same thing. If I didn't do video the last 3 years, like I've been doing now, and I compared myself 3 years without doing video and 3 years with doing video consistently every single day, every single week, the person that's doing video, I'm so much better of a communicator. I can deliver my value prop so much better, my elevator pitch so much better. I can communicate better to my clients. I can create way better content. Like there's so many value adds from doing it, man. On the thing I was just going to say real quick on if anybody's hating on your content, and I mean, there's a difference between hating and disagreeing, right? It's okay to have different thoughts and opinions in a respectful way. But if someone is straight up hating or just trolling your content, I would ask yourself this question, like, do you really think they're happy? How happy do you think they are? How well is their business going that they're taking time out of their day to go hate and talk shit about your content? How amazing are their relationships that they're just so much filled with love that they can't wait to go on social media and hate on someone? So, I mean, the answer to those questions, right? And so I just think about that when people hate, I'm like, man, I guarantee like people get on LinkedIn all the time and TikTok and like either hate on your content or our content, or they'll just create posts bitching about things. Oh, this sucks. Influencers, this, the course is this, that, and I'm hating on this. And it's just like, all they're doing is bitching about stuff. All that tells me you're not focused. You're not focused on your mission and the audience that you want to serve. You're not happy. Business probably isn't booming. Otherwise you wouldn't have time to just bitch about random things. And your level of happiness is probably not the greatest. So I actually feel for those people. I mean, really feel for them because I know they're probably not in a great place.
Yeah, and I think it's about being empathetic when you deal with those people, right? And say, okay, well, how how shit is their reality right now, right? But I think I'm conscious of time, so I think let's wrap up soon. But as a final question, I did want to ask you, because sometimes we get asked like, what's the return on investment on video, right? Like, what's the complete return on ROI, right? They want to do a video and then see money, right? Or see transaction or see clients or etc. I mean, what would you say to people who, because I mean, your motto is having video out there being a constant 24-hour, 24/7 sales piece, right? But does that mean necessarily that you've got high return on investment per video?
Right. So it's a question of like, how does video content make you money? How does it make you revenue? And there's a couple different components to this, right? So if someone came to me and is like, Alex, I want to make a ton of money from video content, I'd be like, cool. Then we're not going to try to build a brand over the 2-week period of time that you want to win customers. It's going to take longer than that, right? So what can we do in the video in the meantime? What can we do with video in the meantime? We can send video messages that are targeted, that are tailored, that are customized on LinkedIn. We can create account-based marketing videos where we can select top 20, top 30, top 10, top 5 customers, and we create very unique videos that are extremely creative and targeted towards them that'll help us convert on meetings and then revenue. We can do a ton of things like that. We can get into social selling. But if we're talking about building a brand and setting up your content, your video content as a 24/7 sales rep for your business, just like if you started a sales rep from ground zero, they're not winning $1 million deals the next day, right? What do you have to do with a new sales rep? You've got to train them. You've got to get them in place. You've got to onboard. You've got to create content for them to consume, to learn about your products and services. You've got to have them make calls or send emails or communicate with customers. And so that's what we're doing with video. So yeah, it's a process in terms of, and it compounds over time, which is great. So you've got to set it up, you've got to get it running, and then it's going to start producing results for you. And when I say video content as a 24/7 sales rep for your business, most people think I just mean video content for the social media feeds. That's not just it. I'm talking about video testimonials from your clients, right? When someone goes to my website or my LinkedIn profile or my TikTok page, they can go easily access my clients on camera talking about the amazing results that we've gotten them for their business, tangible business results and revenue. So now I've gotten the attention of my prospect in the social media feeds, but then I'm taking them to other places where a sales rep would typically take a prospect. They'd go, hey, here's your problems, your pain points, understand it, got it, cool. Not cool, but we can help you solve that. And then let me show you, here's a couple of examples of clients that were in a very similar position to you. This is what we did. This is the result that we got. We can get the same thing for you, right? So video serves a ton of different purposes, but it really should be acting as a 24/7 sales rep and brand builder for your company if you've got it set up the right way.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think, for me, for the longest time, you can go back in history and you can look at why do we make purchasing decisions, because we have an emotional connection to a story that we have been told, or we are connected with that person on a more emotional level because we know, the age-old thing of people buy from people, right? Why do we buy from people? Because we know who they are, right? We know what struggles or demons they potentially had, and that's why we empathize with them more. Therefore, we're more likely to trust them. Therefore, we're more likely to give them business, right? And, as I say, I really appreciate the time. But for people who are interested in seeing some of your content, potentially seeing some of the stuff I've referenced in this podcast, or maybe they want to have a conversation with you, they want to reach out, they want to have that conversation, where's best for them to do that so they can actually connect with you outside of this piece of content?
So you can go to LinkedIn or TikTok, Alex B Sheridan. If you just type that in the search box, you'll find me pretty quickly. And then our website is impacts.com. M as in Mary, P as in Paul, AX.com. We also run a live event that anyone can join called Brand in Demand. It's just message us about us. We'll give you the details, but it's every Tuesday, 2:30 Central Standard Time. You can show up, you can ask questions. I talk about relevant topics related to video content, social media, and then that audio from that becomes the podcast, which is Brand in Demand too. So check out the audio if you're interested.
Fantastic. Really appreciate the time, Alex. Any final thoughts, final messages, anything you want to leave our lovely audience with?
I think we covered a lot of good stuff, man. I would just say that again, think about the core message for this whole thing that all goes back to think about your values, think about who you are as a person, what you stand for. That should drive your decisions. I know it's tough. I know you've got self-doubt, you've got other people complaining or hating, or you've got, people don't think you can do it, or you're worried that it's not going to be the greatest piece of content ever. And it's not going to be. Don't focus on being everything right in the beginning. Focus on who is the person that you are. And if you're a person that believes in taking action and going for what they want in a life and providing value to other people, let that be the push to create it versus having so much resistance to put it out there in the first place.
Thanks so much for the time, ladies and gents. I hope you took value from that conversation. If you did, I'd love what you think in the comment section down below. And if you'd like to hear how video can help your business in 2022, then make sure to find my information somewhere around this video. And I'll be back very, very soon with some brand new content. I'll see you soon.